Hello and welcome to another episode of the SEO Unplugged podcast. I'm your host, Itamar Blauer. Today, I'm joined with Matt Mellinger, who is an SEO agency owner and the co-founder of SEO Gets. Matt, how you doing?
Doing good. How about yourself?
All good, thank you. I'm really excited to be speaking with you today about something that you know a whole deal about, and that is SEO analytics. Of course, with SEO Gets and the platform. If people out there listening haven't used it, definitely check it out. Essentially, as a way for you to get more out of your Google Search Console data. And today's topic, in terms of SEO analytics, I think is something really interesting just because of how the industry is changing and what's been happening. So, from your perspective, Matt, what do you think, comes to mind when people talk about SEO analytics? What sort of strikes you as the most important things to consider?
Yeah, I think like you said, right now there's a shakeup in the industry, and so people are trying to figure that in. Like that's the golden question right now is like, what is the purpose? I feel like there's two camps, and I fall within one camp. But there's kind of like I'll call it a visibility camp with the LLMs and the AI, where I mean, right now the hottest tools are LLM trackers. Like everyone's talking about, hey, how can I track LLM? How can I track this? And I would consider those to be like leading indicators or top of funnel indicators for results. But then you have another camp that's like, no, you should be tracking everything based off leads or revenue or ROI. And sometimes it's hard to draw a straight line. And so it gets muddy. And so there's kind of like, there's things that you can track, and there's things that you can kind of assume or kind of like draw the picture of like, hey, correlation or causation. But I fall into the camp of always looking. We work mostly with small businesses, and like at the end of the day, just from a perspective of like, I want to try to return an ROI on SEO. It's a marketing channel. I believe, again, this might also be another opinion, but I think marketing and sales has a different responsibility in a business than most, that they should be generating revenue. They are responsible for generating revenue. There's other pieces, there's product, there's a lot of things, but there's a reason that the the way that business operates right now is like that's the top of funnel. That's kind of the money makers, even though retention is really important. Other things are important too, but that's just kind of the way that it's been established in marketing.
Sure. And I think from an SEO perspective, as something that has historically been very intangible for business owners, for people in general to understand, like, well, what the hell is it? You can't really touch it. It's a very difficult thing to gauge. So then to try and make the most tangible aspect of SEO, it's you have to find some way of understanding what all of these things mean. How are you actually doing, and what types of then data or metrics are really the most important things at the moment. So as you mentioned, if there's the camp which is very geared towards LLM visibility and being able to understand, okay, how exactly are we positioned within that, which even in amongst itself at the time of recording this, it's a very tricky thing. We're still very early. So how do you sort of see the analytics aspect of SEO sort of shifting based on what we're seeing at the moment, and what should people really start to be focusing on in terms of what is the most likely to get them that ROI?
Yeah, so used to be in a lot of ways clicks. And I think since LLMs and the alligator graphs everyone talks about, like more impressions, less clicks. But you talk to a lot of these people, whether you listen to Will over or Steve Toth, a bunch of these people are saying that like we're getting less clicks, but revenue's up from SEO. And so for me, like we've had that same circumstance with several clients where like they don't even care about clicks at the end of the day. The ones said like, hey, we have so many leads right now, we can't handle it all. Like they could care less about impressions, about LLM rankings. They could care less about any of those things. They care that their phone is busy, they're making money, and it's growing. And when you're doing SEO right, you shouldn't have to like prove your worth, if that makes sense. They should be able to feel the impact, and not right away. Obviously, we understand SEO takes time, But when you get to a place where if you're 2 years in, even a year in, and they're like, so what have you done? You're like, well, we've done blog articles and we've got you ranking for these LLM queries. But if those LLM queries have no traffic, it's kind of like, or even if it does have traffic, right? And it's a national campaign that isn't relevant to generating leads. I think that's why coming up with like a North Star KPI, whether it's leads or revenue or something that you can measure, whether you're an in-house or an agency, um, something that should be measurable, because I think one of the biggest things with analytics is what you measure grows. If you measure revenue, and your revenue isn't growing, then you're going to try and figure out, okay, maybe SEO is a piece of that, but you also need to figure out conversion rate optimization. We have enough clicks getting to the channel. Why are they not? So that's when you throw in clarity. Like you become more of a full encompassed marketer than just an SEO. And I guess that's just kind of my philosophy in that, like, if you're just an SEO and that's your only piece of the puzzle, then your KPI is different, right? You should be tracking, hey, am I getting relevant traffic to the site? Whether they're converting or not is up to the design team or the whatever team. But when you're kind of working, especially with smaller businesses that they don't have those teams, you kind of have to play a little bit more hats, and just you can't just be off the hook with like, hey, we have a ton of traffic to your site, and they're like, well, we're down 20% revenue, and you're like, okay, this is awkward. So yeah, I think like understanding your role and your position within the industry. I think the only like people that really really got hurt are the publishers that are relying on ad revenue, because clicks are their KPI, right? Ad impressions, that's what matters to them. But in terms of like most businesses, um, understanding that like clicks may go down, traffic may even go down, um, but capturing traffic and looking to understand, like, is it just leads? Is that as far as the buck stops, or is it revenue? Like, how involved do you want to be? So I it used to be clicks. The short answer, kind of rambling, but like it used to be clicks. I like tracking whether leads or revenue. Visibility for me is hard, to say that that's a valid way to like stop there. It's a good thing to track, but like as the North Star, it makes no sense to me, because I mean, I just published like a piece that was like, we got 2,500 relevant people to a tool that we're ranking for. It looks great. We've had 0 subscribers from that tool, lead gen. And so it's like, it seems good on surface. And I think that's the issue with SEOs is like, historically, we relied on clicks, which you can hide behind clicks. And even worse, you can rely on impressions. And it's like, sure, you can be seen a million times, but if no one purchases and no one takes action, it's kind of like the Instagram people with a million followers, and they go and post and no one purchases. And it's like, okay, so what good is a million followers if it doesn't do anything? So I look as SEO as a way to like move the needle. And it should, in that opinion.
Sure. And I think something that's quite interesting, which would sort of, I guess, understanding where you're seeing things, but then what the revolution of AI and the developments have caused is actually for people to take that step backwards and actually focus a lot more on visibility and brand and impressions. Which, from
Mhm.
what you're saying, of course, it doesn't make sense to the bottom line because it's harder to track it. Because what good is the impressions if you can't correlate it with revenue or the bottom line? But the argument on the other side is, well, actually, it does have to be more encompassed within general marketing of more people seeing you're top of mind, and then maybe somebody might come through and search for your brand name then on Google. So it's actually maybe your branded impressions and clicks that could be as a result from you being visible there in the first place. So that's just it kind of feels like we're slowly sort of going backwards in that sense of like having clicks as less of a focus, but more on the impressions,
Yeah.
which in itself is very difficult to track anyway. But I guess then my question to you is, in terms of the analytical tools available at the moment, and I would maybe hone in on the Google proprietary one because that's what most people would be using, like your Google Analytics or Google Search
Yeah.
Console, for example. What do you think, or is there something that you see most people sort of not looking at like correctly or not as effectively in terms of those particular analytics platforms? Like, what do you think people are missing or they should start to do that they may not be?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's an easy one just because it's the worst platform, but GA4 and specifically even event tracking within GA4, no one wants to touch it. Like it's when they got rid of UA, and a lot of the ease of being able to access data and the UI on the front end of getting answers became so much harder. I feel like so many people are just going to search console as a source of truth, which again is a helpful tool. I have a tool for search console. I'm like playing down the tool that like it's a helpful tool, but like I think web analytics has become a more important source of truth because you can do event tracking, especially if you get advanced. There are some people on LinkedIn. Dana is a great one to follow, um, where they help you figure out like understanding LLM because again, from the front end, you can track impressions from LLMs, but like web analytics allows you to actually see well from the LLMs how many people are actually coming to your site and what is their quality or what is like that's where these people can come in and say like, hey, our quality of traffic is a lot higher with LLMs because we're event tracking through web analytics. And so I think understanding like GA4 better and spending some time or paying someone. Like I think you can get away with just paying someone to set it up properly once and then having them walk you through it. And then being able to understand that. Because again, GA4 and GA4 is good. I actually use Plausible alongside GA4 just due to it has been better. But web analytics as a whole, I think, is just growing with event tracking. And I don't think people track enough events. And it's easy to see funnels where people are dropping off because, again, if they're getting to your homepage and then they're bouncing, are they the right people? Are they going like are they going through these steps? Are they which buttons are they clicking? Like things like that I think matter, especially because we know that SEO matters with engagement, right? Everyone's come out and said like, okay, they're tracking Chrome, they're seeing do you bounce back, do you engage, do you click things, how much time on the page? And so engagement metrics matter. And so understanding like, okay, this is why they're bouncing. Technical SEO, the page is loading too slow. Okay, they're bouncing. Well, that hurts your SEO. No matter how good your on page is, those things will have an impact. So that's one of the things that I need. Even myself, I'm kind of preaching to myself. Is like I need to spend more time making sure event tracking is set up properly. That I'm understanding those and how to basically take that and use it to make decisions. Because analytics as a whole should always drive you to action. I think that's the big thing is like people like looking at analytics because it's fun. Hey, look, it's up and to the right. But unless you're using analytics to make decisions, whether, hey, cull content, improve content, change this, improve this, like you're wasting time. Valuable time as SEOs. We know we wear 20 hats. And so like you have to be quick in analytics to understand what you're looking for, what story you're trying to tell, and then being able to communicate and make reports effectively so that the stakeholders, whether in-house or agencies, understand the value of that. So I think that's the big one for me.
Yeah, no, I can definitely see that, especially when GA4 did become the default when UA wasn't a thing anymore. And I had Luke Carthy on the podcast as well, and we were sort of talking about it when it was all very fresh still. And he made the point that GA4 as a platform was more for data scientists as opposed to marketers, which is what UA really was. UA was a tool for marketers. But within J4, absolutely like what you're saying, the event tracking is really irritating. And for me, when I'm setting up event tracking, I'm using Google Tag Manager to sort through everything to be able to test and do all this sorts of stuff. And even that's taken me a while of a lot of trial and error in terms of figuring out what works. And some people either don't have the know-how or don't have the time to be able to mess around and you have to sift through. I'm always thinking about it as like this is what it must be like to be a developer, where it's like your stuff just breaks and doesn't work, and you just keep
Yeah.
having to try and hack away at it until it does. But from that perspective, yeah, there's a lot of analytics that people currently don't have, or which essentially means they're not getting as much visibility in terms of what's happening on their site as a whole. And that could be, like you're saying, to take action from things as opposed to just sort of taking a look and be like, okay, cool, this is great. Let's check back in on this date or whatever. So I think that's a really, really good point as well. And something that I think we can sort of segue with towards the future of analytics, at least from an SEO perspective. It's like what is it something that you would really want to see that we can't really see at the moment in terms of analytics tool. And I would, if I had to guess, I would imagine some of that answer would be more towards AI search and what's been happening at the moment. But good to get your take on it.
Yeah. So yeah, I think yeah, just making it ease of use, and even if it's just to better understand like one or two things. Like one thing that people don't even know is how much are AI bots crawling your site. Um, and another one that like right now is one of my in my opinion one of the most underrated things to look at right now is your indexing report. Because we understand that you will not show in both the SERPs or AI if your pages aren't indexed. And so most people, I think it was a couple weeks ago, and I'll say this, so it was probably beginning of July, that Google de-indexed a ton of pages and no one knew about it. There was a little chatter about it on LinkedIn, but like some I had a lot of people reach out to me and they're like, dude, 20% of our sites or 20% of our pages just got de-indexed. The crawled but not indexed. And so I think obviously with the rise of AI and crappy content, that they're having to be more efficient with their crawl budget. And so understanding two things: are your pages indexed, and what is being crawled by AI bots? Because that's important. If they're not crawling, then you're not being shown. And I think those two things, if you pay attention to those two things, I think 80/20 can have a huge impact in just showing up in things. Because again, it's like those things of like, we've had clients where they're like, we don't show up anywhere. And it's like they had the little checkbox of like the no index on. It's like it's that, but in a lesser manner. And so you just don't realize it until you go back and you're like, wow, when did this happen? Like there's no alert. They don't have any red flags of like, hey, 20% of your pages are no longer being indexed. You'll probably see a decrease in impressions or something will change. But those two things, I think, especially in the world of AI, more people should be paying attention to.
100%. I couldn't agree more. And I know that Adam Gant on LinkedIn, and he's been creating indexing insights, sort of
Mm.
to really show people the visibility of that, especially because like in Google Search Console, you're not really getting any updates into like the only things that you get is when you get an email or a client forwards you an email that says, "Oh no, there's a page that's not indexed," and you go look into it, and it's like a page that's not even part of your internal HTML URLs, and you're like, "Don't worry about it." But at least what you're saying is like, if all of a sudden a bunch of your pages are removed from the index, you need to know about it, and it's like that's something that I agree completely. We need more visibility on, but it's just one of those things where it's a question of the people behind the tools to be able to like listen out to the community, give them what people are asking for. And I think that is definitely going to be high up on the list of those as well. So, Matt, just to sort of wrap things up here, in terms of analytics, obviously within SEO, it's something that you've got SEO Gets as a great tool for. If people do want to reach out to you with any questions, where can they find you?
They can go jump into SEO Gets. We have a free trial. We have a chat bubble. You'll actually talk directly to me or the other co-founder. You can email me at Matt at SEO Gets, or you can find me on LinkedIn or Twitter. All of those would be great.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Matt. It's been really interesting talking SEO analytics with you. If anyone has any questions, reach out to Matt. And thank you for listening/watching. And we'll see you as always in the next episode.